Let's build a new house for Garfunkel, our 150-pound tortoise. So Simon has his own house, and it's a structure I built from scratch. Simon has been with us for several years, and he's enjoying his house. Now, this house that I built with Simon, that house was built from scratch. The floor of the house is actually all dirt. I give him all of the opportunity he needs to dig as much as he wants inside the house. And because we have essentially dry weather, it works out real well for him because he can dig all he wants. It doesn't get wet. In the summer, it actually provides some humidity as well. So we picked up Garfunkel about 4 months ago. He's a 150-pound tortoise, and when we got him, I had to put him into let's call it a bivouac. It's essentially some pallets, some blankets, and a tarp to get him out of the weather. So I needed to get him into a new house as quickly as possible. And rain started coming, so he actually got rained on there for about a week. But once I was able to, once the weather stopped and it was able to dry out, I was able to build his new house pretty quickly. We have had some really, really bad weather over the last 3 weeks. In fact, in the last 2 months, we've gotten about 20 inches of rain here. 20 inches of rain. We get 8 inches a year, and we actually got 20 inches of rain here. Luckily, I was able to build this house for Garfunkel before all of this happened. Over the last 2 weeks, we actually got snow and hail and 30-degree weather. It's been horrible weather, and we never get this kind of weather, so it's been very, very strange. The house we are building for Garfunkel, most of the materials I was able to get for free. I kind of lucked out on that, or at a low cost. I actually am using posts that came from a vineyard up in Paso Robles, Central California. And the posts were taken out of the vineyard. They're about 25 years old, and that gave me the ability to actually build a log cabin. So let me show you what we did to build our little cabin on the hill for Garfunkel. Now I'm using some 4-inch posts that I picked up, along with some, I think it's 5/8 rebar. Now, it's going to be a square enclosure, 5 feet by 5 feet. I've already pre-cut the 4-inch, and I've got some other pieces here I'll be using as part of it as well. These 4-inch fence posts I picked up off of, I think, Facebook Marketplace, kind of for about $1 a piece, so that's not too bad. The rebar I got for free. I found somebody, I put a notice up on Nextdoor app. Somebody had some old rebar they didn't want anymore. That's also true for the 4x4 posts here. I put a note up on Neighborhood app, and somebody had some old 4x4 posts they didn't want anymore. They were 12-footers. Those 12-footers were twisted a bit, but I cut them down to 2 feet and 3 feet, so the twist won't matter in building this. I'm going to be attaching the 4-inch post to the 4x4 posts using 6-inch long 1/4-inch lag bolts, galvanized lag bolts. So they'll go right into the post to do that. Now that I have the basic structure in place, let me explain to you what we're doing. As you can see, we're going to build a log cabin. I'm going to build a log cabin for Garfield. This is going to be his front door. The entire structure is actually facing south. The reason I'm facing it south is that he gets full sun in the front door all day, all season. So the sun will come rise and set this way with the sun beating into his door, kind of forcing him to wake up. The other thing we're doing, so I've got the higher front door, lower in the back. The roof will be slanted down to the back. Also leveled it out. I know it's higher in the front, but we're going to get around that later on, and you'll see I'm going to put some posts there to make it easier for him to get in. Each one of the 4-inch posts that I have going around, each one of the 4-inch log cabin I'm putting in with a 6-inch, 1/4-inch galvanized bolt. That'll just go through the post and go into the 4x4 post to hold it in place. Once the 4 gets put in place, you can see that I've got this in a rock area, and I've got the weed protector to keep weeds from growing up. You can see the weed screen down here. When I get done, I'm going to cut that, and I'm actually going to wrap it up inside, probably about that high. And what that'll do is that'll give him direct access to the dirt to dig, but it'll keep the rocks from the outside that I'm going to pull up to it. It'll keep the rocks from coming inside his little area. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to stop him from digging. I'm allowing him to dig as much as he wants in this hole. He can dig all he wants in here. But I want to stop him from digging out and going underneath, much like I had a problem with Simon doing that. So I've got some 5/8 rebar that I found on, like I mentioned, I found it on the neighborhood app. Somebody who had some old rebar they didn't need, so I got some rebar, cut it, and this is what I'm going to be using. I'm going to put this in about every 14, 16 inches, something like that. You can see I'm going to put 4 of them in along here. They're just going to go right in the ground. I'm going to drive them in like that all the way around. And what that'll do is, by having this in there, one, it'll keep the structure from moving. Garfield is unbelievably strong. And I bet you if I just left this thing sitting here, not in the ground, he'd be able to move it. So one, this is going to keep the structure in place right where it's at. Number two, when it's in the ground, when he digs down, he's going to hit the rebar. And by hitting the rebar, it stops him from going up underneath. So that's what I've got. I've got a 5-foot by 5-foot log cabin. The door is going to be right here. We're going to put a rebar in to keep him from digging out from underneath. I'm going to take the weep screen that's on the bottom, pull it up a little higher, and essentially that's what I'm going to have when I get done. So this is the basis for it, and I'll take pictures and show you as we go along. You can see the beginnings of the log cabin now. What I'm going to be doing is putting another row along the top, and then I'll break it up on the front, and you can kind of see that it's turning into a log cabin. So when I get done, I'll have, like I said, I'll pull the weed screen on the bottom, pull it up to kind of give a open area for Garfield to start digging down here. We've got some room over there, got room over here. Also, you'll notice, and I'll show you later, you're going to see gaps in the timbers. And the reason there's gaps in the timbers is because this stuff is very curved. And we'll fill those with foam later on to give it a nice tight seal. Now, if you take a look at these posts are actually from a vineyard up in Paso Robles. These posts were in the ground for what they told me were for like over 20 years. And they were removing the vines that were there, putting a whole new set of vines in. So they were getting rid of all these posts. And it's really nice. I can use these posts, reuse them. They should last me another 20 years at this point. It's nice having it a little rustic and a little rough because any imperfections you're not really going to notice. So I think it's coming along really nicely. So you can see where we left off yesterday. We've got the makings of our little log cabin. Now I pre-cut 20 of these at exactly 50 5 feet, 60 inches. And I pre-cut these at 12 inches. So all I'm doing is just putting together like Lincoln logs, if you're old enough to know what Lincoln logs are. So I'm going to try and do a few more rows and kind of get it done today. I want to get this done over the weekend for Garfunkel because like today it's in the 50s and the wind's blowing like crazy, and I want to get him into his new house with some better heat and make him a little better off than what he is now. I have a couple of things I'm doing with the top. One, I need the top to be light enough for me to open it from the side here and be able to, well, open it so I can get in, because the other one drives me crazy because I got to going through the door, which is a pain in the neck, and this isn't quite that big. So if I can open it up, that means I can actually step in here and clean it if I need to. So once I want it to be light, I need to be hinged in the back, and it needs to be sealed up and insulated. So here's my finished log cabin for Garfunkel. I made a mistake, miscalculation, underestimation, I don't know what you call it. I was hoping to have Garfunkel in by today, but I need to wait a while. I'm not going to put the roof on for another week. We've had a crap load of rain over the last month, and the ground down here is still very, very wet. So I don't need Garfunkel sitting here in wet dirt for the rest of the winter. So I'm going to let it dry out. I'm going to put a heater in here and see if I can dry it out a bit. So I hit a little drawback on it, but we're doing pretty good. So today Garfunkel came up and was checking out his house to see how things are going. But we've run into an issue, and I was unexpecting. In a couple days we're going to get some very, very low temperatures. Typically we get about 1 week a year where the temperature gets into the mid-30s. And they've even threatening that we might get snow at our elevation. They're claiming the snow levels are going to drop down to about 2,000 feet, and we're at 2,500. So I need to get Garfunkel out of that makeshift house we've got and get him into here. So we ran into a couple issues. I mentioned in the last video, in the last segment, that the floors were wet, and it's from all the rain we had, so I didn't really want to put him in there. So what I've done is I've put some plywood in and with some Timothy hay, and I think now I've got a nice little enclosure for him on the inside. So what I've done on this is I've taken, I had a piece of plywood that just fit in here. It's about 4 feet by 4.5 feet, and it just fit. So what I'm doing is I put the plywood down so he's not sitting on the dirt. I put a couple bags of Timothy hay in here so he can have something to kind of claw into and get into, so keep him warm. I also went through already and I put in, I foamed the inside of this, but I didn't like the way it looked. So after I put spray foam in all the cracks, I actually covered it with some 40-year felt, black felt you use for roofing material. I covered the sides, which will actually give it an extra layer of insulation on this. Probably didn't need it, but it just looks better with, you know, without, you don't have to stare at that ugly spray foam that I put in there. But the outside looks really good. So it looks like we're pretty close. Now the only thing I need to do now is I've got to build the roof. I've got it designed, I've got the pieces here. So let's go take a look at what I'm going to do for the roof. Hopefully I can get the roof done today, tomorrow, and get Garfunkel into his new house tomorrow. I've also got to set up, probably going to put it on this side. I'm going to set up his heater. So his heater is hanging right here so we can heat up the place. So let's go take a look. So to build the roof for Garfunkel in his little log cabin, I just have just a small group of materials I needed. One, I needed to get some of this angle iron to build a frame. This is heating air conditioning tubing that is used to wrap around copper pipe. I'm going to use that as part of the insulation of the roof when I put it on. This is a little bit more of that, and then some gate hardware, and then a bunch of 1/4-inch nuts and bolts. So that's the main part of it to build the roof. Let me kind of show you what I'm doing with the roof, and then I'll walk you through it. So let's take a look at the framing that I'm using. This is corrugated vinyl roofing that I got over at Lowe's. It's a nice heavy material, and they're 3 foot by 6 foot. I've got 2 of them overlapping so I can get a 5 foot length, which makes it really nice. Then I've taken this angle iron metal, bent it a little bit to make a nice square frame. And once I get the square frame on, I'll bolt it to. Once I get the square frame on, then I'm going to be able to bolt it to the corrugated roofing. There's going to be some holes here and some holes here that I want to seal. So I'll be using that foam rubber here. I'll be filling this in with 3/4-inch foam pads to give me a nice insulated roof. So let's put it all together. So I've got the initial frame put together. What I did was I took those angle irons and squared it up on the 2 corrugated roofing panels I had. Then I put those 1/4-inch bolts, just put them right through the panel, bolted them down nice and tight. Now once it was all square and in place, then I got these heavy duty hinges, they're gate hinges, bolted the hinges onto the metal. Now I've got hinges on one side, I've actually got a latch on the other. With this in place like this, now the next step is I'm going to put foam around the outside edges right along here to give it a nice sealed look. So the final product for Garfunkel turned out pretty good. We've got a nice little log cabin with a porch on it. The doors are pretty much sealed up. Because of the rain and the heavy rains we had, I was not able to give him a dirt structure yet, and a dirt floor. So he's sitting on not 2x4s, but plywood right now. So he's sitting on plywood with some hay. He's pretty warm in here. It stays about mid-60s up to 70 degrees from all the cold we've had. I did seal in the outside underneath the black felt that I have around the outside. I was able to seal it up with foam, but I didn't like the way the foam looked, so we added in the black paper to give it some additional insulation. And he seems to like it. He's been hanging out. Right now he's kind of mad because it's cold and it's late at night. But he's done really well. And he's all ready for the summer now. Now we really did luck out. We were able to finish his house just before we had the hard rain and the cold weather. So he's been pretty cozy for the last month and a half. So we did luck out on that. It worked out really well. He hasn't been coming out much lately because of the weather, but hopefully it's currently the first week of March, so I'm assuming we're going to start getting some better weather coming over the next few weeks. Glad you joined us. Until next time, this is Jeff. We're out.